Hey guys, I'm excited to come on tonight. I've been wanting to talk about this or introduce this to you for quite some time now. Something from this book, Think and Grow Rich, which is a great book. It has some amazing concepts in it, just really solid perceptions and rules to live by, kind of. It's not really, to me, it's not about getting rich or having material wealth. It's just about putting your mind in the right place. And there's so much wealth of knowledge in this book. There's this super cool part though. This is an old book by Napoleon Hill. It's just awesome. But there's this part in it that is so neat to me. I've tried to do it myself and had a little bit of fun with it. I wanted to read some with you because it's nighttime right now here where I am. And my kids are gone at the moment, so I wanted to read this to you. So this is Napoleon Hill, who was an author, a speaker. He spent his whole life with some of the greatest inventors and business people of all time. I'll get to that in a minute. But this book, chapter 14, is about the sixth sense, the door to the temple of wisdom. Okay. He says, the sixth sense is the portion of the subconscious mind that has been referred to as the creative imagination. It has also been referred to as the receiving set through which ideas, plans, and thoughts flash into the mind. The flashes are sometimes called hunches or inspirations. I'm going to flip through this a little bit because what I really want to get to is his invisible council, which is a whole cabinet of members that he has purposely orchestrated in his mind, and he meets with them every evening in his imagination to receive guidance, basically, is how I'm going to put it for you. So he says the sixth sense is probably the medium of contact between the finite mind of individuals and infinite intelligence. For this reason, it is a mixture of both the mental and the spiritual. It is believed to be the point at which the mind of an individual contacts the universal mind. Through the aid of the sixth sense, you will be warned of impending dangers in time to avoid them and notified of opportunities in time to embrace them. He talks about it like a guardian angel. He goes on about some different ways to use this sixth sense. But let me just read to you. So he says, long before I had ever written a line for publication or endeavored to deliver a speech in public, I followed the habit of reshaping my own character by trying to imitate the 9 men whose lives and life works had been most impressive to me. These 9 men were Emerson, Paine, Edison, Darwin, Lincoln, Burbank, Napoleon, Ford, and Carnegie. Every night over a long period of years, I held an imaginary council meeting with this group, whom I called my invisible counselors. He explains the procedure of, I'll just read it real quick. The procedure was this: just before going to sleep at night, I would shut my eyes and see in my imagination this group of men seated with me around my council table. Here I had not only an opportunity to sit among those whom I considered to be great, but I actually dominated the group by serving as the chairman. I had a very definite purpose in indulging my imagination through these nightly meetings. My purpose was to rebuild my own character so it would represent a composite of the characters of my imaginary counselors. He goes on, I knew that all people had become or have become what they are because of their dominating thoughts and desires. I knew that every deeply seated desire seeks outward expression through which it may be transmuted into reality. In these imaginary council meetings, I called on my cabinet members for their knowledge. I wished each to contribute. So he goes on and mentions I wrote a few notes on this note card here. So some of his invisible counselors, like I'll just give you an instance of what he says to Mr. Lincoln, but he calls on them each at the beginning of his meetings. Mr. Lincoln, I desire to build into my own character the keen sense of justice, the untiring spirit of patience, the sense of humor, the human understanding, and the tolerance that were your distinguishing characteristics. So he calls on each one of them as he's conducting the meeting, and he brings to them different things that he's stuck on, or answers that he's looking for, or whatever he's going through, a challenge, he talks through these things with his invisible council, his cabinet members. I think it's so cool. He's got Edison, Ford, Lincoln, Napoleon, like all these. It's so neat. So this is the really cool part. He says this, there's two cool things that happen in here. He says, one evening, Edison arrived ahead of all the others. He walked over and seated himself at my left, where Emerson was accustomed to sit, and said, "You are destined to witness the discovery of the secret of life. When the time comes, you will observe that life consists of great swarms of energy, or entities, each as intelligent as human beings think themselves to be. These units of life group together like hives of bees and remain together until they disintegrate through lack of harmony. These units have differences of opinion, the same as human beings, and often fight among themselves. These meetings which you are conducting will be very helpful to you. They will bring to your rescue some of the same units of life that serve the members of your cabinet during their lives. These units are eternal. They never die. Your own thoughts and desires serve as the magnet that attracts units of life from the great ocean of life out there." He goes on, the other cabinet members start to enter the room. At this time, Edison and Napoleon Hill were friends. And he said that he brought this to Edison and told him what was said in the meeting. And Edison smiled broadly and said, "Your dream was more a reality than you may imagine it to have been." He added no further explanation to his statement. So Napoleon Hill goes on to write, "These meetings became so realistic that I started to be fearful of their consequences and discontinued them for several months." He goes on, "Some 6 months after I had discontinued the practice, I was awakened one night, or thought I was, and saw Lincoln standing at my bedside." You want to know what he said? I'll read it to you. He said, "The world will soon need your services. It is about to undergo a period of chaos that will cause men and women to lose faith and become panic-stricken. Go ahead with your work and complete your philosophy. This is your mission in life. If you neglect it for any cause whatsoever, you will be reduced to a primal state and be compelled to retrace the cycles through which you have passed during thousands of years." I'm going to end it there, but this is such a great book. Napoleon Hill went on to finish this book, and it is, well, when I bought this, over 15 million copies had been sold worldwide. It is the top-selling success book ever written. And I also got my hands on this book, also by Napoleon Hill, which was in hiding for over 70 years, from what I understand. This book was written shortly after Think and Grow Rich came out. And it is Napoleon Hill, again, with his wonderful imagination, talking about an interview with the devil. And it is quite interesting. He squeezes a lot of information out of the devil in this book Keep in mind it is the devil, so some of what the devil says in the book may be trickery. I do not know. But basically, when this was written, Napoleon Hill did not feel comfortable to publish it. And I think his family waited for 2 more generations before they actually published it. And that was an intentional decision. I think he was afraid of being put in the loony bin if it had been put out, or maybe he was concerned that people may not take this book as seriously if this came out right after it. He has a wild imagination and he's very intelligent, and I think he did have a connection with some knowledge that maybe the average person isn't privy to. But in this book, I'll tell you about 2 main concepts in this book. The devil talks about drifters and how he sucks people in, and he says only 2% of the population is able to think for themselves enough to escape the holds of the devil. And so he talks about drifting, which is basically the devil's way of capturing people. They drift by doom scrolling, social media. They drift by like getting into bad habits, mindless habits. They drift by allowing their minds to percolate with negative thoughts and feelings. So there's all these ways that the devil gets us to drift. And there's this other concept which is really interesting called the Law of Hypnotic Rhythm. And it's basically what happens when we've been drifting for so long and we have these bad habits that we've created and we just get into the rhythm, the monotony, the mechanism of these habits that they become mindless. We're like hypnotized by them. And so it's not even anything we think about anymore. Like the law of hypnotic rhythm is just, we're just going about our day like we always do, but we're not present. We're not there. We're like robots or machines or something. It's like crazy. But as I'm reading this, all these light bulbs were going off and I'm like, yes, that's what we're doing. That's what people are doing. So I haven't read the whole thing. I've reread bits and pieces of it, and I'm just picking apart different chapters and conversations that stand out to me. But fascinating. It's fascinating. Some of it's entertaining, and some of it is like severely motivating and inspirational to read it and be like, aha, that makes so much sense. Anyway, that's your info for tonight. Just some stuff I wanted to share with you guys that I was like, I go down these rabbit holes. They're like wonderful, inspirational, positive rabbit holes for the most part. And sometimes I want to share them with you. So there you are. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave a comment if you had any breakthroughs or want to learn any more. All right, bye.